Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia. Routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. For Kia Hyundai, best in new inventory, great pre-owned inventory available. With a great sales staff to get it done, work with you, and a service department to back it up. It's all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, online at sunburymotors.com. Glenn in a moment. First, our play-by-play call of the day. Let's get the World Series started with a bang.
2 balls and no strikes on Jorge, and the pitch on the way. Hit well, deep left. That's going back. That ball is gone! 1-0 Braves. And Jorge feels like busting loose. And that's how you start a World Series.
Jorge Soler leads off the World Series with a home run, set the tone. Braves won last night in Game 1, 6-2. Game 2 is tonight at Minute Maid Park. In fact, all day over at a local Wise, Matt was buying Minute Maid juice. It's, you know.
That's right.
Because you're just a big fan. You get influenced by advertising easily. All right, so. All right, here we go. Glenn, welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us. Let's talk about the Eagles.
Sure, why not?
That was our attitude going in. All right, so. Glenn, how tough is this when the margin of error is so thin for this team?
Well, it's tough, bordering on impossible.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of talent. They don't have a coaching staff that appears to be adept at putting together a game plan or changing that game plan. They have a young quarterback who looks a little lost at sea out there, and they've had some injuries. So you put that formula together, and winning seems close to impossible.
Okay, so let's talk about what's right. You see Devontae Smith. What are you seeing in him? Because he's going to be a long-term solution. What do you see in him that allows him to be that?
Yeah, and the easy answer is speed. But it's speed, but it's not just speed down the field. It's speed off the line. And one of the concerns going in with him was, hey, he's a really small guy. You know, a quarterback's going to line up, whack him at the line of scrimmage, and he's going to fall over. But he gets off the line of scrimmage so quickly, gets into his route so quickly that the cornerback, more often than not, can't touch him. So they have to respect him, so they have to move back a couple of yards. And that's really good. He runs good routes. His hands have been pretty good. I think he's had 1 or 2 drops, but nothing serious. It's the kind of thing where if they could get him the ball on a more consistent basis, boy, he could be Rookie of the Year. Don't know that that's going to happen, though.
See, but then let's flip it to the other side. See, Smith is what Rager should have been last year.
Sure.
And still isn't this year.
No.
Yeah, I think to me, that's a problem that a first-round pick was wasted on a guy that a lot of us, I said it the day they drafted him. I go, why? I don't get it. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I think that is a problem. He makes poor decisions, not just in pass routes, but they have him as the kick returner, and he'll catch a ball 5 yards in the end zone and run it out to the 18-yard line. Like, what are you doing there? What are you thinking there? Yeah. He makes a lot of mistakes. He, too, has speed, but he hasn't figured out how to use it. I will tell you the one other thing. If you're looking for upside, you're looking for good points,
yes.
Quez Watkins, who's the the second-year receiver, 5th rounder, I believe, last year. I may be off by around, but I think he was a 5th rounder last year. He's really good, and he's a deep threat. And again, if you had a quarterback and you had an offensive line and you had a coach able to scheme this, Quez Watkins' name could be known around the league right now because he has the potential to be a star.
Absolutely agree with that. That's a great point, Glenn. No Miles Sanders right now. Obviously, we've talked about the ability to get the ball into his hands. What do you think the future of Miles Sanders can be with Philadelphia? I mean, is the future in Philadelphia?
I don't think it is because, he's going to be nearing the end of his contract. There was actually some little bit of talk last week that, maybe they could trade him before the deadline. Well, the ankle sprain changes that, of course, and he's not going to get traded. But why would you sign a running back to a second contract if you don't plan to use him? And so it would be a foolish move by the Eagles, and it would be a foolish move by Miles Sanders to stay here any longer than he has to. We know running backs have a certain number of years, certain number of carries in them. He should not waste those years here to get the ball 8 times a game. It doesn't make sense for anybody.
So I know there's only one ball. I've done enough games in my career. Even I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can't get the ball to Miles Sanders, every player, whatever. But what has been Nick Sirianni's explanation for, at times, the lack of usage from Miles Sanders?
Boy, you're asking me to figure out what this coach is saying. This is a coach who did a whole 3-minute metaphor on the team is the flower, and we have to put down the roots and the fertilizer and the sunshine today that left everybody baffled.
Right.
So,
wonderful. That's fun.
Yeah, so that was one. So I'm trying to think, what is he saying about Miles Sanders? Mostly he says, yeah, that's on me. That's pretty much his explanation, that's on me. Or we thought we saw something. Here's the shame of it. The shame is last week they come out and they finally use him, right? Early on. First drive, 67 yards. They go down the field, 8 plays. He runs the ball. He carries the ball, and he does it effectively. And then that's it. And then, he got hurt in the second possession, but they just stopped running the ball. They didn't give it to Gainwell. They got 4 first downs for the rest of the half, and they were done. And the coach just gave up on the run. Even with Sanders out, he should have stuck with the run. He's got Gainwell, he's got Boston Scott, and he just gave up on it. I just don't think that's part of his package.
All right. What have you thought of the defense? It's one thing, a defense can go out there, they can either get stops or they can get takeaways and set up the offense short in the field. Where's the defense deficient right now that's not giving them more opportunities?
It's all three. It's all 3 phases. The defensive line is not getting pressure. I think you and I talked about Fletcher Cox last time I was on. His season's a washout. He came out after the game, kind of took a veiled shot at the defensive coordinator, saying, I don't make the scheme around here. I should be rushing the passer, not covering screen passes. And he's right. A player shouldn't take a shot at his coach publicly, but the statement was not incorrect. Anyway, the defensive line isn't getting pressure. The linebackers have been bad on this franchise for years. Singleton gets tackles, right? But his tackles are all after a guy drags him for 8 yards. It's like the old Westerns where the bad guy gets stuck on the horse, behind the horse, dragged by the horse.
Exactly.
That's him trying to tackle a runner. And the secondary is maybe not as bad as the rest, but not very good. Derek Carr was 31 for 34 last week. I don't know that you did that in the backyard when you were 12 years old.
I know. Well, I know I never did. My goodness, if I threw 34 times, I'd have had Hurts's numbers. All right. And even then, it would have been iffy. You notice in this entire conversation so far, I haven't brought up Jalen.
Yeah.
So I saved it for now.
Yeah.
Where is he better? Because now he's got more games under his belt as a starter now than he did last year. And where is he treading water?
Well, the problem is the arrow's really been down the last couple of weeks. I thought he had a couple of good games early in the season, and I thought even with the head coaches, the offense coordinators' inexperience, Hurts was making some things happen. But he's really trended down. The accuracy has not been good. He waits too long on patterns. He'll have a guy, it's the NFL. If somebody's open, they're going to be open for a half of a second. That's when you got to throw it. You got to get it in that window, and he doesn't. He waits. You see it on the replay. Somebody's open 10, 12, 15 yards down the field and has his arm up, and the ball's not thrown yet. So he has a tough time spotting open receivers, which is very problematic. His accuracy's not good. What I like about the kid is he's got very good leadership skills, which is, I think, important even as the team is kind of falling apart. He's gutsy. It's like all of the things that aren't actually in the play of the game. In the play of the game, he's obviously very elusive. He's a good runner, although he hasn't figured out when and where to run. But one of the big challenges right now with the Eagles is how much of their deficiency is the coach, how much is the quarterback, how much is talent. Can we fairly judge Jalen Hurts for the future when he's in this bad of a situation? And that's the decision the Eagles are going to have to make at the end of the year.
Yeah, because I think for the most part, the quarterback you see in college, you are who you are. Now, you can get a little bit better as the game slows down at the next level. But to be honest with you, he's playing the way he did at Alabama and Oklahoma. He's just doing it on a pro stage, doing the same things.
Yeah, and the Las Vegas Raiders are a little bit better than some of the teams. Listen, they played a good schedule in college, but playing against much better talent right now.
No doubt. I wouldn't, Vanderbilt, Raiders, right. Vanderbilt.
There you go. It's a little bit different. You don't have that margin for error that you had going up against old Vandy.
But it's interesting about that because Najee Harris led the nation in broken tackles last year. Well, you notice with the Steelers right now, that's not happening. Okay?
Right.
He's not being tackled by the Ole Miss defense, and he's not being hit. And he's not being hit 5 yards downfield first on first contact either. A little bit different.
Yeah.
So how do you view Detroit this weekend? This matchup.
I don't listen. I hate this question. The Lions have not won a game.
Yep.
And the Lions have not won a game on merit. I have not watched them much, to be honest with you, because they're the Lions. They don't come on my television. But I can't pick the Eagles to win to beat anybody right now. And what I don't know out of Detroit is, are they hanging in? They have the first-year coach, Dan Campbell, and he's the real tough guy. We're going to bite their ankles and all that stuff, bite their kneecaps, whatever it was.
Right.
And if they're hanging in and Detroit wants to win, I think they can win this game, and I think the Eagles are this close to kind of being so dispirited that the entire season goes down the tubes. Because I think things are pretty I wish desperate. Desperate means you want to win. I think things are pretty disconsolate around here right now. I think the veteran players are not happy with the coach. I think that the defense is very dejected. I think there's no voice in that coach's room that commands respect. And I think the Eagles are on the precipice. Again, you can beat Detroit because Detroit has a lot of talent. But if they don't beat Detroit, I just see this thing tumbling.
I apologize for the last question, but you knew I had to ask it. And it's just, I don't blame you for saying you hate answering a question like that.
Well, that's
I don't
all
blame
right.
you at all. Glenn, appreciate you so much. Thanks for the great answers.
Hey, it's always my pleasure. Anytime.
Thanks. Glen Macnow joining us from the Eagles Network. Wow. See now, normally Matt will hang up on the guest. But now Matt has a series of questions for Glenn where he wants honest answers, direct answers.
No, I think we got him, which is why I brought him on for this particular week. Because Glenn doesn't hold back, and that's what I like about him.
Doesn't hold back. Yeah. And again, I go back to, are you sure Mark and Luke don't go to a mall court and boo Santa Claus? I just want to know.
No. 100% no.
All of you out there with cell phones, I want video evidence. We'll come back with more in a moment. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Get the lingerie on the deck. Call the janitor.
Hands on their feet. Rally towels are being waved. Brad Lidge stretches. The 0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Combination of an awesome Phillies moment, their second ever championship, with the voice of Harry Kalas. Okay.
There, you happy now?
Happy about what? I don't care. I didn't care who won the thing. I'm not even sure I was watching. So, yeah. I think I was watching.
I remember watching.
Well, of course you were. I mean, you were sitting there like, which is the Yankees.
No, I was genuinely happy for the Phillies.
Well, you think about that franchise. You don't get your first title to 1980? Creep. I mean, the Marlins have as many titles as the Phillies do.
Correct.
The Diamondbacks are one behind. But that was a great moment. That was a great team. In fact, honestly, I thought they would beat the Yankees in 2009. I really did. But, yeah. So, here we are. That was their championship. I mean, am I happy now? I'm just saying, a great moment for the fans in our area. You bypassed it to yell about something. You just totally bypass it. Nice little anniversary. Make the fans feel good. No. You think you're going to feel better by depressing them. Oh, good. Just sent the timing sheet. Great. 7:44 is kickoff. How about that? Wow.
And it will be with the A-team on ABC, Fowler and Herbie, but College Game Day, of course, is going to be in Sparty.
Well, it should be. It's two undefeated teams.
Yes.
It should be. That's the right spot to be in. Script, Ohio happens at 14 and a half minutes. Thank goodness it's only 4 letters. All right. Hey, we're going to do Script, Pennsylvania. Oh, geez, we're going to be here for a month.
No, senor! No, senor! No, senor!
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. All right. All right. Great to have you with us on the show today. And a lot going on. This is a great time of the year. I ran down all those high school football games. You were impressed, by the way. I knew all those games.
I was.
You're kind of in shock that I had all those games. But yeah, there you go. Okay. I got to work something out here because Thursday, November 18th, we have a basketball game at 7 o'clock, and of course we got the talk show on Thursday. I can tell you right now which one I'm not doing. So,
I pretty much know the answer as well.
it's like, I mean, I will tell them. I said, I'm not doing that. Okay. We're not taking a pay cut just so I can sit there. As simple as that. Let's take a... yeah, we could get the suit to fill in. Oh, just think of the legal problems, all the lawsuits. All the restraining orders that would have to be violated to do that.
That certainly could cause a stir, I'm sure.
Well, we're going to talk with Chelsea Janes coming up from the Washington Post in the next half hour about the World Series. Great to have you with us. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com and News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Was I too quick on the touchdown Penn State? Because the reason I go that quick instead of drawing out like touchdown, like Shikellamy where it goes into Monday, that it gives Jack a chance to speak. Am I wrong about that?
No. Not at all. I thought it was fine. By
the way, for the 20-something consecutive year going there, whatever, they're not asking me to dot the I. All right, so I don't understand why. All right.
Who would want to anyway, really?
Jack Nicklaus teared up when he did it.
All right, well, I guess that's a special moment.
Well, if you're an Ohio State guy, it's like, what does it take to dot an I? I mean, really? All right, so
I'll just go vomit somewhere else and be done with it.
Oh, you're just such a Philadelphia guy. Come on. This is what you go home and teach your kids?
Not quite to that extent, no.
All right, I'm just checking. Sean Clifford today in his press conference. I feel good. Obviously, I didn't feel 100% last week, but at the same time, I felt good enough to play. I'm going to be probably 100% this week. I'm doing everything I can to put the best product in the field. Hate when the player contradicts the host of the show. Co-host, that'd be you. You and he don't see eye to eye on him.
Only he knows him. I'm just surprised that I just didn't think it was going to be this quick.
Because you don't know what he had, okay? That's why everybody, if you don't know, don't guess. Okay? I've heard enough guesses. And I think I've been very polite about nodding my head about, okay, that's what you think. I've been very polite about it. Okay? All right. Okay. And believe me, everybody's tried to drag it out of me. Right, Matt?
Even the King did last week.
He got nothing. All right. All right. So let's get to the World Series again. Chelsea Janes joins us from the Washington Post. Chelsea, number one, great to have you with us. I guess it's true. I guess they're telling me that you got booed one time in Atlanta.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so is it true that you were once booed at Turner Field, and that's why the Braves moved north?
I don't know if there's a correlation. I've never confirmed it, but it is true. I tried to throw a ball to some kids, and I just totally missed them, and everyone thought it was so bad. Everyone thought I did it on purpose. So it was, I'll never forget it.
Unfortunately, and then of course I had to remind you of it. Yeah, way to go, great host.
No, I'm proud of it. Who gets to get booed? Very few people.
That's right. So I know for me, now I haven't had the basketball experience yet of getting back until a couple, 3 weeks from now. But in the football experience, after announcing games in empty stadiums last year, which I did, I'm now doing games with 100,000 plus, and it's totally different. What's it been like for you to cover games again with fans and stands?
It's awesome. I mean, the first day I got to do that was at Yankee Stadium on opening day, and there were only 10,000 people, and it felt like there were 100,000. It was one of those things where you get chills, and you're like, wow, it's amazing that we just got to do this for years, and we never appreciated it for what it is. It's so special, and it's really amazing that we're back doing it.
We know what the perception was of the Houston Astros 2 years ago, and they were able to get through last season with no issue because There was nobody to boo them. By getting there now 5 consecutive years, whether, division title and now getting to another World Series, are they changing their perception nationally, or is that still hanging over them?
I think that there's always going to be a really vocal, potentially minority, maybe majority, who are going to hold the cheating against them for a really long time. I think naturally you're always going to be suspicious of what comes after something like that. But I think what they're showing is, like, the real tragedy of it all is that they never really needed sign stealing to be one of the best hitting teams,
right,
of this generation. I mean, they're loaded. They have an AL batting title winner hitting 7th right now, and you can't argue with it. They're so good. And I think, from what I hear from people around the game, the changes that MLB has made to monitor for the kind of stealing signs that the Astros did make it very hard to do that again. I mean, it doesn't mean they're not doing anything, doesn't mean other teams haven't figured out other ways, but, they're not doing what they were doing. And I think that they have proven that without doing that, they are just as prolific offensively. And so to get back to this point this many years in a row is a huge achievement. And I think if they win one now, a few years removed, different coaches, largely different players other than the big kind of few in the infield, they'll shed as much of it as they can shed. It'll always be there, but all they can sort of do is prove that they can do it without it. And, I think they're kind of well on their way to doing that.
And the batting champ she's referring to is Yuri Gurriel, who is a pro's pro hitter. Man, he is a pro at the plate. Yeah. So let's get to, obviously, the pitching part of this. We know how regular season plays out. We also know how analytics play out. Watching the number of moves that people are making, is it, in your opinion, and you can kind of judge by words and how they use, are they doing this because, look, it's the postseason, short leash, no matter what, first sign of trouble, we move? Or are they doing it so they can explain later, well, he was in trouble, so I made a move?
It does sort of make sense, each individual move. I think you're seeing starters kind of get pulled really early. I think in the past, there's two things at play, I think. I think, one, starting pitchers are exhausted right now. They are certainly used to pitching, a full season of innings, but they didn't do it last year. And anyone in player development will tell you that, you never want to put anyone's arm through an innings jump that is, even 50% more than the innings they threw last year, let alone 3 times the number of innings. So you're just seeing guys being more tired. And I think that, like, sort of the new development, as Dusty Baker said yesterday, is now if a starter is struggling, you don't play the long game. You don't watch him and say, you know what, we need to save our bullpen for game 4. You assume that if you have a chance to win this game, if it's not out of hand, you have to play to win that game. And that's sort of the conventional wisdom now. And so, I think you're seeing a lot of moves on starters early. The patience isn't there. Whether that's right or wrong, it certainly can be annoying to people, but, it's just kind of a part of things right now. I don't know how long that'll stay. I think there will be talks about ways to sort of, ensure starters staying in the game longer. But, I think, like, in a vacuum, each of the moves makes some sense, but it's just a different approach, and it slows the game down, and you kind of wish they didn't have to be made. So I think it's going to have to be kind of a structural change to eliminate that, but it certainly makes these games drag more than they potentially need to.
But it's interesting about that. Let's have a little fun with this for a moment. It's interesting how you can win 95 games doing it one way, or in the Braves case, I think it was 88, and enough to get you here. And now you completely change how you play once you get there. That's what I find is so interesting. You somehow, some way under the old way won 95 games and 88. And now it's not good enough. That's what I always find interesting about this.
It is fascinating. And I think, like, whether or not that is a bad thing is something that I've never decided. Because is it more fun that it's kind of wild this time of year and a free-for-all and everybody's available and all this stuff? Like, I don't know, but it's certainly true. And I think more and more, like, the regular season is moving this way too, which is why you sort of have to adjust. I know one thing that's been on the table, Max Scherzer, the, Cy Young kind of winner guy, he, as we all know, he wants to tie the DH to the starting pitcher, right? So you get a DH as long as your starter's in the game.
Right.
As soon as you pull him, then you have to pinch hit and stuff. So stuff like that. There's got to be incentives to sort of keep guys in. But it is crazy that how much things change this time of year. And it makes it really hard to build a roster to win a World Series. I mean, Alex Anthopoulos of the Braves the other night, who has obviously built a team that went to the World Series, said, I still have no idea how to build a team that gets to the World Series because it just gets random. Things get weird. And, it's really strange. I think that's fun in some ways, but I think it's also maddening to people who, look at a team built to win, 105, 106 games, and neither of those teams is in the World Series.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. Is there anything hanging over this World Series because on midnight December 1st, the collective bargaining agreement is up?
I think so. It's tense. I think that's going to be the story of the offseason, unfortunately. Both sides kind of say the right things about being optimistic about getting something done by December 1st. I don't see how that happens. It might not necessarily bleed into the next season, but there's just a lot of issues. There's a lot of big-time frustrations that the players have. The owners don't think there's that much wrong, and so that clash is going to be substantial. And, this is a sport that needs to broaden its audience. It needs to find a way to sort of re-entrench itself in places where it's lost ground. And to have labor issues steal even some of the intrigue of the offseason, but certainly any of the regular season, I think would be hugely problematic. And I think that people realize that. I think there is an understanding that you can't afford, especially after the losses of COVID, to shut things down for any substantial length of time. But, the people who negotiate these things, they have a lot on the line. They have personal things on the line. They have, frustration in play. And I'm not sure how it'll all go, but it's a scary time, I think. I think this is a big one. I think whether they kick the can down the road or not, there's some big kind of clashes looming there.
And what's interesting about it is I'd like to get your gauge since you're there every day, because, I felt like the last 2 months of the season with everybody opening up the gates, because some people had limited time, in terms of when they opened up fully and so forth. I felt like the last couple of months they were really gaining some momentum with the game and the fan. Did you get that sense too?
I did, and their ratings were really good early in the postseason, compared to what they normally are. There was real excitement. I think they, suffered for, a lot of their big stars kind of not being able to make it to the playoffs, but the games were really good. I mean, everything's been good. Whether you like the Astros and the Braves being in the World Series, the drama has been there. And, there is momentum. They have hugely marketable stars in Fernando Tatis, Shohei Ohtani, these names that weren't on the radar a couple of years ago, that they can do something with. And I think it always just boils down to the perception that these negotiations are rich guys arguing over money that none of us will ever have. And, to let that win out over momentum that they need, they have to capitalize on, I think would be obviously a mistake and sort of unconscionable.
America got to see Juan Soto play a couple of years ago and loved watching him play. They're missing out on Ronald Acuna Jr. this time through because of the injury he suffered back around the 4th of July. What does it tell us about the Braves that they're in this spot without having a great player like that in the lineup for almost 3 months?
I think my first instinct is that they'll be back. I think they're going to be able to add a starter or two and pop in an MVP candidate like Ronald Acuna Jr. and be formidable in a division that is not formidable. So, they're not going to have to, really grind their way through a regular season. I think they'll be back. I think Anthopoulos knows what he's doing. He has admitted that he got lucky at the trade deadline. He acquired a bunch of outfielders and all of them kind of fit and worked and produced, which doesn't always happen. But I think he is a guy who seems to kind of have a good feel for how to do this. He seems to have learned lessons from failure in the past. And, I think they're pretty well set to be around for a while, much like those teams of the 90s. I think these Braves might have a decade in them of postseason runs.
It's interesting because, obviously in the 90s with the big three, especially on the mound,
right,
they could roll out, anybody they wanted, whenever they wanted. You felt like, well, they got a shot tonight. For Houston, Correa, his contract's up, for example. Do they have a chance at continue long-standing, or is this where the economics of baseball will start to unravel them a little bit?
I think they're gonna unravel a little bit. I think Correa expects to go elsewhere. They'll keep Bregman and Altuve. Obviously, they've got Yordan Alvarez, who people should know. He's an incredible hitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a Red Sox fan. Okay, that's where I grew up. Was in New England. Okay, so no offense, but when you're hitting 5,000 in the playoffs, I think he's pretty good.
Yes, exactly. They're loaded. Kyle Tucker is going to be an elite hitter. I mean, they're just dripping with offensive talent. They've got a lot of young starters who've now thrown a lot of postseason innings. I don't think they're going away, but I think Correa is at the heart of a lot of what they do, a lot of their swagger, and it'll be interesting to see how they choose to replace him. There's plenty of big-name free agents out there. Maybe they get a deal done. He doesn't seem to think like he'll be there long-term, but I don't even know what they do with Dusty Baker, which sounds absurd after he leads them to a World Series, but he's not your traditional kind of new age manager, and they might want somebody like that. So it's going to be an interesting time, but they're not going anywhere soon. They're just going to kind of have to rework what they've got, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're right. How do you rework it, especially after a year like this? Because there's always a temptation, this, where especially if the team wins it, there's this attachment to not want to get rid of players. And you and I both know that's not always the way it's supposed to work out.
100%. I mean, the Nationals, for example, give Steven Strasburg a massive extension. They didn't want to let him go, but that was a sentimental decision and not a baseball one. They knew as well as anybody, if not better, that he would probably get hurt again, and he has, and he hasn't pitched. I think he's maybe won one game since the end of the 2019 World Series. So you can't get caught in those deals, and the Cubs didn't do it. The Cubs took a lot of stuff for letting Rizzo and Bryant go, but they didn't want to overpay, and they didn't do it. And we'll see what comes of that, but I do think sentiment gets in the way. The Astros have been a team that's really been pretty numbers-based, but, these guys are beloved there, Correa, Altuve, Bregman, and there'll be a lot of pressure to keep them around.
I feel like Houston's become a baseball town. All those years of being a football town, then maybe the Rockets, I feel like they're a baseball town now.
They certainly seem like it. I mean, they have some of the best crowds in the game, as much as people don't want to hear it. I mean, they're loud. They know what's going on. They're into it, yeah.
Chelsea, it was an absolute pleasure. And when it goes to Atlanta, they'll cheer you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Great conversation. Chelsea Jane joining us from the Washington Post. It was so refreshing to talk to somebody with a positive outlook on life.
I had no idea about the thing with the Braves. That's funny.
Oh, yeah. She threw a ball back and they booed her. It was like, oh, jeez. Ah, boy. I can only think of one thing worse than that, really.
And that would be?
Oh, booing Santa Claus. I mean, I'm sorry, you can't do that. Back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK. When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you. The other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years. Try this one on for size. The Cleveland Indians announced the franchise will be called the Cleveland Guardians following the conclusion of the 2021 season. Well, today, a Cleveland-based roller derby team, also named the Cleveland Guardians, is suing the franchise in federal court in an effort to block their use of the name. Major League Baseball would never let someone name their lacrosse team the Chicago Cubs if the team was in Chicago, or their soccer team the New York Yankees if the team was in New York, nor should they. Hunt and Andrew Kurth, lead attorney Christopher Pardo, said in a statement, The same laws that protect Major League Baseball from the brand confusion that would occur in those examples also operate in reverse to prevent what the Indians are trying to do here. By taking the name Cleveland Guardians overnight, the Indians knowingly and willingly eviscerated the rights of the original owners of the name, the real Cleveland Guardians. The Cleveland baseball franchise used the name for 100 years before deciding to change it. As a result, the team announced that they would be transitioning to the Guardians following the 2021 season. According to the lawsuit, the Indians knew that the Guardians roller derby team also had the same name months before announcing the name change. The lawsuit also alleges that the Cleveland Indians lawyers made secret trademark filings on the small island of Mauritius in an effort to hide the intent of the Guardians' name, and then reached out to let the roller derby team know of its plans. As a nonprofit organization that loves sports in the city of Cleveland, we are saddened that the Indians have forced us into protecting our name that we've used for years, said Cleveland Guardians roller derby owner Gary Sweat. We know we are in the right, however, and just like our athletes do on the track, we put everything into this effort in the courthouse. I see. Oh, brother.
I have one message for these people. Go take a hike.
But they're not wrong.
But I didn't even know who the heck they even were until they pick a fight here with MLB. So stop.
But it depends on whether they copyrighted the name. If they copyrighted the name, the Indians have to pay for it. What if it's copyrighted? What if it's a registered trademark?
I guess by letter of the law, then yeah, but...
By the letter of the law, that's why you have copyrights and registrations.
I get it, but these people are just picking a fight.
If they don't, then they don't have an argument. But if they did, then the Indians do owe them money. I mean, they really, because what's the use of having copyrights and registrations?